We spoke to Brigham McCown, a safety expert who used to run the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, and I asked him if the Quebec disaster, which is moving oil by train, was still a safe option.
Sure. Well, we're coming up on the one-year anniversary, July 6th, of the Lac Mégantic spill up in Quebec, and obviously that train accident killed 47 people, practically leveled the small town. We'd like to think that won't happen in the U.S., and frankly, the railroad rules are different in the U.S. That was an unattended train that literally ran away in the middle of the night. That won't happen here. But if you live by the railroad tracks, and I grew up near railroad tracks as well, I think people do have a right to know what's being transported through their communities and to be knowledgeable. And in large part, if people know what's coming through, generally I think they're more reassured, not more scared. So, you know, it's a balance of safety. And again, I agree with the railroads that, you know, for certain precautions, you don't want to know exactly what's coming through when. But let's face it also, crude oil is not really as dangerous as a lot of other hazardous material shipments like chlorines and anhydrous ammonias, things that are toxic or poisonous to inhale. And those things we also ship by rail each and every day without incident.
There's been a significant amount of protests, and there's been a request for railroads to at least disclose when these trains are transporting what they consider hazardous materials, and that's debatable. But the point being is that the railroads have, at this time, not disclosed that information. Do you think that the railroads should disclose it?
I think the railroads need to be more transparent than they've been, and I agree with Transportation Secretary Fox when he ordered the railroads about 2 months ago to disclose certain information to state and local responders. Because let's face it, I agree, we don't need to know exactly what time, what train is coming through, but I think the first responders are entitled to know what type of products are coming through their cities so that they can be prepared if there is an incident.
When you look at technology and how that's changed, we were just chatting briefly earlier. In the 60s, you know, a lot of the rail cars are designed basically from the 60s. And of course, in the last few years, there's been a new design that is supposedly much, much safer. Tell us the difference between these two types of rail cars that are transporting oil.
Sure, absolutely. And you're right. Railroads have remained virtually unchanged and go close to 100 years probably. But you know, what we've learned over the last 40, 50 years is that during a derailment, the trains can come together and the end caps can become brittle and fail. So the new cars have reinforced end caps. They have thicker sidewalls. The steel used in the sidewalls is thicker. Some of them are double lined now. And then in the case of a rollover, there's been an enhancement put around the valves on top of the tank so that the valves won't leak or break off if the car rolls over. And those are the three main differences.
Now, like any issue here in the United States, it's been politicized, partly because of this oil pipeline that they want to build between basically Canada and to the south. And a lot of people are saying that this Keystone Pipeline is the solution to those concerned about rail safety. What would you tell those folks?
I would tell people that it will help and that statistically speaking, pipelines are the safest form of transportation. We move around about 23 million barrels of refined products and crude oil each and every day by pipelines, and most days absolutely nothing happens, and that's 11.3 billion barrels a year. But by the same token, Keystone XL will only handle about 1 million barrels a day, and only a smaller percentage of that will come from the Bakken. So even with Keystone XL, we still need more pipeline infrastructure if we're going to move off of rail.
As you look ahead to the next several years, what do you anticipate the future of rail to be when it comes to rail safety, in particular transporting these sensitive materials?
The producers today like rail options because unlike a pipeline, rail assets can be dispersed pretty much anywhere in the country. So you can break up your shipments, you can move things to different refineries based on local shortages, take advantage of price differentials. So even though rail is more expensive, I've seen a lot of shippers that are preferring it over pipeline right now. I think the bottom line is we're just producing massive amounts of oil, and we are reaching that tipping point of becoming energy independent. And those products are going to find their way to market one way or the other.